Hello and welcome to Toronto Pearson International Airport. We are sitting here we're actually at the FedEx building, but it's okay. We're sitting here with an American Airlines Airbus 320 CEO, which is the current engine option, not the new ones with the Neo, which are called the Neo, with the LEAP engines or the Pratt & Whitneys that nobody wants. But anyways, we have the CFM 56 engines here. And today we're just going to simply get in the airplane from a cold and dark state. We're going to taxi to runway 5. We're going to take off, do a circuit or pattern, depending on what you call it, depending where you live. Come back and we're going to land on runway 05. It's not going to be 100% in depth and it's not going to be extremely basic. I'm trying to make it in the middle so the video is not 17 weeks long. And we'll go from there. And I'll explain little things along the way. Alright, so we're going to jump inside the cockpit right now, and we'll start clicking buttons and show you how it's done. We're inside the cockpit right now. You see it is completely cold and dark. First thing we need to do is provide the airplane with some power, and we do that by giving it DC power first. And the DC power comes from 2 batteries, and we click those on in the overhead panel. There's battery 1 and there's battery 2. So go ahead and click them. And that gives us DC power. Everything is still off. For that, we need AC power. Now, AC power we can get from multiple sources. We have something called a GPU, which is a ground power unit. And we also have our APU, which is an auxiliary power unit. Now the GPU can either be a cart or it could be from the jet bridge itself at the airport. Seeing as we're not near a jet bridge here, we do have a GPU in the form of a cart, which is this right here. And it's hooked up with this cable right here. And if we go back in the cockpit and look at our overhead panel, let me change the view here to make it easier to see. Over here you'll see it says external power, and we have the available green light, which means that we are hooked up. So if we go ahead and click this right now, we will establish AC power on our aircraft, and you're going to hear some dings and bangs and fans running, and that is completely normal. The Airbus 320 is a very intelligent airplane, and it goes through all these testings all on its own. So I'm gonna go ahead and click it right now, and we'll show you what it does. So go ahead and click it, and she's alive. The screens are gonna flash, and they're gonna run through a self-test. So while it's doing this, we're going to start just prepping the cockpit here a little bit. I'm not going through the checklist 100%. I'm not going by the book. But we're just doing this to get the plane going and just do a quick flight. So it's not 100% by the book. So crew supply goes on, ground control goes on, get some nav lights on, turn our ADIRS on, 3 of them. That's completely normal. You're gonna hear dings and bangs. Has nothing to do with what I clicked. Emergency lights on. Let's go ahead and turn the seatbelts on and the no smoking sign on. Just referring to my quick checklist here to make sure everything's done. Batteries on, external power is on, crew supply is on, ADIRS are on nav, emergency exits arm, nav lights are on, and ground control is on. So we're going to be dealing with the MCDU, or the McDo as we call it, and this is the brain of the airplane. And what it does is it bridges the pilot to the airplane. It is the connection. You tell the MCDU what you want it to do, you put the information in it, and it pretty much controls everything, and it does 80% of the work. Flying an Airbus 320 is quite easy once you learn the systems and the basics. So we're gonna go ahead in here. We already loaded our fuel and our cargo just randomly. I only put 4 tons of fuel today. It says fuel on board. We have 4 tons, and I just randomly put a random number for passengers and cargo and whatnot. Alright, so now that we have that set, we're going to get the weather. It's off screen, you can't see it. Winds are 030 at 5, it's 21 degrees Celsius, and our altimeter is 2986, and we are dry. Gloomy weather outside, but that's Toronto for you. Okay, let's program our MCDU real quick here. We're not doing a full flight, of course, so we're not going to have any departures, we're not going to have any arrivals, we're not going to have any of that. We're going from Toronto to Toronto because all we're doing is a quick circle and landing. So planning this the way I'm doing it right now is not typical because, again, we're not going from point A to B, we're going from point A to point A. So we go to ATSU, AOC menu. Usually, you know what, I'll just go here and I'll do it right here. We don't have a company route, just ignore that right now. So we're gonna go CYYZ to CYYZ. A flight number, we'll just put a random flight number. Cost index, don't worry about this, it's just how efficient, it's pretty much time versus fuel savings that the airline gives you. Each airline is different. I just put a random number there. We're just gonna go up to 3,000 feet today. Ignore this again. Usually we'd put our cruise flight level, whatever it may be, 34, 35, 36,000. This isn't typical, of course. Again, we're just doing a quick circle. So we go to the next page here. We need to fill out a zero fuel weight and our block fuel. Our zero fuel weight is basically the airplane's weight, the passengers, the cargo, everything except, obviously, the fuel. So our zero fuel weight is going to be, which I remember I told you I already randomly put it earlier, so it's going to be 56.9 tons. So we're going to put 56.9 tons, and our center of gravity, as you see here, it says CG, is going to be 30.7. I calculated this earlier. Usually we would get this in something called an OFP, which is an operational flight plan that the gate gives us. Excuse me. And everything's written on it. So this is where I'm getting the information from. So I'm gonna put that in here. Our block fuel was 4 tons. Oops, not 40. 4 tons. And now the Airbus will calculate everything. It has a fuel prediction that it does. Once you have all the route and everything, it will actually calculate. It'll tell you what your landing weight's gonna be. It tells you what your takeoff weight's gonna be. Tells you your trip is going to use this much fuel, it's going to take this long. So it's a very smart system. So now that we initialized the airplane, that it knows how much it weighs, we're going to keep going down the list here. So we're going to go to the flight plan page. Usually we'd put our departure, arrival, and our route via airways or whatever the OFP tells us. Since we're only going from Toronto to Toronto, I'm just going to put the arrival. We're landing on runway 5 today, so we're using the ILS runway 5. So we're going to click that. We're not using any stars today, which are arrivals, because again, we're just doing a circle. We're going to insert that into the plan, and it gives us all the fixes on our ILS. We're probably going to be intercepting around Dulpa at 3,000 feet, and if you look here, I'm going to put a little diagram to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so now that we have that set, we're gonna go ahead to our EFB, which is our electronic flight bag right here. I already entered all the information. All the airlines have some sort of performance calculator where you enter the parameters and it will give you a takeoff performance. So we have CYYZ, runway 5, it's dry, flap is gonna, I'm just letting the system pick the optimal. Usually we take off 1 plus F, but I'm just gonna leave it here. Anti-ice is off, packs are off, this is our takeoff weight, winds are set, and we're gonna press calculate. These are the numbers that we need. So we're gonna take these numbers and put them in the MCDU, the MCDU, the computer. So if we go back to the MCDU and we go to the performance page, you will see there's missing information that we need to type in. So we have, let's see, V1 is going to be 128, that's our decision speed, VR is our rotation speed, and V2 is the minimum climb speed, safety for one engine. 128, 135, 135. 128, 135, and 135. Flaps are going to be 1. Our flex temp is going to be 67. Now, I don't want to confuse you too much. Flex temp is basically derating the engine. So if our engine, for example, I'm just giving you an example here, puts out 50,000 pounds of thrust at max thrust, that doesn't mean every single takeoff we're gonna put 100% power, use 50,000 pounds. It's unnecessary. If it's a cold day, if the runway is long, if our aircraft is light, we don't need to use 100% of the power. Think of it like when you are driving at a red light. When the light turns green, do you floor it? Do you accelerate 100%? Of course you don't. The reason we flex or derate the engines is to prolong the engine's life, which saves money, and saving money for the airline makes you a very good pilot and they will like you very much. So this is what we do. So the system already calculated that given these parameters, we can flex to 67, which will derate the engine and still make it safe for us to fly given the parameters. Our flaps are 1. Our trimmable horizontal stabilizer, which is this, is going to be down 0.5. So flaps 1 down 0.5. So we go flaps 1 and we have down 0.5, and we're gonna enter that here. We're not taking off from an intersection, so we don't need to worry about this. We're gonna use the full length of the runway. So now we have the performance plugged in. The computer says thank you, and it knows exactly what to do. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and click our fuel pumps on here. Just turn them on. The Airbus 320 is a very smart aircraft. Like I said, you turn all your pumps on, but they're auto. So if the center fuel tanks, for example, have no fuel, they will shut themselves off automatically. Now, the problem with us wanting to leave now is we have this little thing connected to us and we can't drag it with us, but we still need the power. So what we need to do is find another source of AC power, and for that we can use our APU, which is in the tail section here. It is a third engine that produces two things that we need: AC power and bleed air. Bleed air for us is extremely important. Bleed air is pressurized air that is used for multiple functions. And one of the most important functions is starting the engine. A lot of people think that the engines are started either with electricity or fuel just comes in, but what you need to start the engine, again I'm simplifying this, is pressurized air that comes in through a valve and spins a gear, which spins the inside the compressors up to a certain speed where fuel then can be added, and the engine starts spinning faster and faster until it becomes self-sufficient. Then we can turn the bleed air off and we don't need it. So to start the engines, we need the bleed air, and we get that from the APU. So what if the APU is not working today? What can we do? We then use an air cart, which is kind of like the GPU here, but instead of giving us electricity, it gives us pressurized air to start the engines, and then we can disconnect it. But for today, luckily, our APU is working. So we're gonna go ahead inside and we're gonna start our APU. To start our APU, usually we need to test the fire detection system in the APU, because we don't want to start our APU and there's a fire and the detection system is not working while it's burning back there and we have no idea. So if we look on the overhead panel, you will see we have engine 1 fire detection, engine 2 fire detection, and an APU fire detection. So this is how you can tell we kind of have 3 engines basically. So to test the APU, we're gonna hit the test button and it's gonna bing and give us messages down here, which we can't see because we're pointing up here, but you just click it and watch what happens. Okay, that means it's good. So we're gonna go ahead and start our APU. We're gonna click the master switch on and we're gonna start. it automatically, the Airbus 320 on the lower ECAM already goes to the APU page. As you can see, it's still off, so it takes a minute to start. Let's go outside because it kind of sounds pretty cool, so I'll let you hear it. And once it starts, you're going to see the exhaust coming out of here, so just keep an eye out. Okay, so our APU is on, and if you ever went beside an airplane and you with its engines off and you heard a loud high-pitched noise, what that is the APU. So this is what it sounds like. When we go back into our cockpit now, you see the door page came back on because that is the default one when we're at the gate. We can manually pick the APU page because I want to show you. Our APU is running at 100%, our flaps are open, and it's providing this much bleed air, but it's closed right now. So if you look here, our APU gens at 0%, that means we're not using it at all. And why is that? Because we're still connected to the GPU. So if we go up here, we can disconnect from the external power. And if we go back and look at the APU, it's at 41% load, which means now we are on APU power. So what that means is we don't need our GPU anymore. In real life, we would look out and tell them to disconnect, and they would disconnect us. In the game, we go here, we go to ground services, and we disconnect our GPU. GPU is gone, but we still have power because we are using the APU. So now that we have APU power, we can also get some APU bleed air. If we go here to the bleed page, you will see that there's no bleed air being provided. Usually it's from the engines, but our engines are off, and our APU is on, but the valve is closed. So let's start getting some bleed air into our system. The APU bleed is here, we click it on, and we go back here to the ECAM, and now you can see the green line, which it's in line right now and it's green, and there's a valve here that will open as well. This is the cross valve, the crossfeed valve, and it opened. So now our APU is providing the left side with bleed air, and also through the cross valve it's providing the right side as well. If we look up here, we can also see that this is the bleed, the air conditioning. This is the bleed panel right here. So this is the cross valve I'm telling you about. So if I turn it to the left, I will shut off this valve that I was telling you about. And now the right system is not getting any bleed, only the left system is. So if I were to try to start the right engine right now, I will not be able to start it because there's no bleed air being provided. I will be able to start the left one. And after I start the left one, I still won't be able to start the right engine because this valve is closed. So I either open it or I put it on auto. And this is why the Airbus is smart. You just leave it on auto. For normal operations, you really don't have to do much. These switches and knobs are usually there for abnormal operations. Our packs are on too, which provide air conditioning and pressurization. This is why you kind of hear the AC. So if we go to the back, you can hear the AC. If I were to shut off the packs or the bleed air right now, the airplane would go completely quiet. But I don't want to do that because I don't want to cook the passengers in the back. But apparently, we don't have any. Alright, so let's move on right now. Let's program our MCP. Let's program our MCP here. We're only going up to 3,000 feet, so we'll just leave that there. The runway course heading today is 057. We don't have a flight plan, so we're not gonna fly managed. We're gonna fly like this. So I'm gonna put it at 57 right here, and our speed is managed. This is at hectopascals. We'll put it into inches of mercury. 2986 is. There we go. That's it. It's a little bit bright. Let me put it down. There we go. 2986. Whatever flight directors are on, seatbelts are on. Let's go ahead and put our transponder to auto. Our predictive wind shear auto. Our APU bleed is on. Let's get ready to push back and be on our way. So let's call the tug right now. So as soon as he connects, we're going to push back, tail left. We're going to taxi to the runway and just prepare the airplane for takeoff. Again, I'm not doing everything 100% by the book. We're just getting the airplane into the air, come back around, and land. So we're almost ready. So we're going to turn our beacon light on. And that is the red flashing light outside. And what the beacon light is, it's a light that indicates to the ground crew that the engine is either running, it's spinning, or we're about to start. So it gives them a warning to stay away. They cannot approach the airplane while the beacon light is on. Well, they can't approach the engines especially. There's the beacon light flashing. This guy, I think it's his first day, but we'll forgive him. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and push back right now. Let me just go through the checklist here. Okay, we're good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and take our parking brake off, which is right here. Parking brake is off. Usually they'd push us back, obviously, but we have to do it manually here. And here we go. They gave us clearance to start, so we're gonna go ahead and start the engines. We'll start with engine number 2. I don't want to confuse you as to why we start engine number 2. It's not mandatory. Different airlines have different rules, but let me turn. Hold on one second. But engine number 2 pressurizes the yellow hydraulic system, which has the nose wheel steering and the parking brake on it. So most airlines choose to start it. So we'll start engine 2. Let's watch it from the passenger's point of view. Notice how the AC went quiet. The reason is because we need all the bleed air to start the engines. Alright, let me start the pushback. What's that whine, you say? That is one of our hydraulic pumps. The Airbus has 3 hydraulic systems: green, blue, and yellow. They're completely independent of each other. You know what? Let me show you actually. If we go to the hydraulic system, we have the yellow, we have the blue, and we have the green. That whine you heard was actually the blue hydraulic system, because the blue is electric and the yellow is powered by an engine-driven pump, and the green is powered by an engine-driven pump as well. Our left engine's off, so obviously we don't have pressure. But the green one can also be pressurized via the PTU, which is the power transfer unit from the yellow. But during the first engine start, it is inhibited, so it does not start pressurizing the green system. So now that we have a good engine start, we're going to go ahead and start the number 1 engine. Now when we start the number 1 engine, however, the PTU will kick on and you will hear a whine in the cockpit that sounds like a barking dog, which many people ask what it is, and this is what it is. It is the yellow system pressurizing the green system via the PTU, but that only happens when we turn the other engine off, because like I said, during the first engine start, it is inhibited. So let's go to the passengers, and we're gonna go ahead and start the number 1 engine, and I want you to listen to the PTU. Here we go. There you go. That was the PTU. You kind of caught it there. It was pressurizing the system. So when we start the engine, we make sure we have N2 rotation, we make sure we have fuel flow, AGT is rising, and N1 is rising. The N1 fan is this big fan right here. The N2 fan, it's a little complicated, but we have a lot of compressor turbines, compressor blades and turbines in here. And the N2 is a system that you can't see. It's inside the engine. So now we're going to wait until the second engine says, the first engine, the second engine we started, I mean, says avail. There it is. That means we have 2 good engine starts. So we'll just run through our after start flows real quick here. Let's do them, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and put this back to norm, arm the spoilers, flaps 1, which is, we would move this here, and what you see in the cockpit, what you see as a passenger is this. So flaps 1, and this is what you see. We also extended our slats by doing that. Notice how they're hanging out. So now our flaps are set for takeoff. So why do we have a nose wheel steering disconnect? Because the tug is hooked up, and when the tug is hooked up and pushing us, they actually insert a bypass pin that disconnects our nose wheel steering. So if we disconnect the tug, we go back here, look at that, it's gone. Alright, so we'll finish our after start. Mode selector was norm, flaps are set, spoilers are armed. Now that we have our engines running, we don't need our APU anymore, so we're gonna go ahead and shut off our APU and our APU bleed as well, because now our engines are providing us with the AC power and with bleed air. Flaps are 1. Flight controls, we're gonna check. So the Airbus is smart. As soon as I start moving the controls, it will take me to that page automatically. We have full left, neutral, full right, neutral, full up, neutral, full down, neutral. Now we check the rudder, full right, neutral, full left, neutral. What you see as a, actually before that, I'll show you. So this is the side stick, and these are the rudders, and this is the tiller. This is how we turn the airplane on the ground, basically. And this is what you see as a passenger. Full left, neutral, other side. Full right, neutral. From the outside, we'll go to the elevator. Full up, neutral, full down, neutral. The rudder, full right, neutral, full left, neutral. Taxi lights will come on, parking brake will come off, and we are ready to taxi. We can add some power and start rolling. Brake test. Yes, I have a bird and she is very vocal. Just pretend it's a bird in the cockpit. once we are on a straight taxiway, we'll go ahead and finish the before takeoff checklist. Okay, so we're gonna go to auto brake max for takeoff. Cabin is ready. We'll give him a little ding. Cabin crew, please be seated for takeoff. I'm gonna have to put our transponder on TARA. And now we will test our TO config. And then we will come to the ECAM and we will say ECAM memo takeoff, no blue. No blue means there are no items that are pending for takeoff. We're going to take off with packs on today, so we don't need to turn them off. As soon as we reach the runway, we're going to stop, pretend that we need to wait a couple of seconds until they give us clearance for takeoff, and then we're going to go ahead, line up, and take off. Alright, we'll stop right here. Okay, so they have given us clearance to take off. We're gonna go landing lights on, strobe lights on, runway turn off on, and nose to take off. Parking brakes off. Let's put this bird in the air. We're going to do a rolling takeoff. Line up. We're going to advance the power to 50%, stabilize, and then go to flex. Here we go. Manflex, SRS, auto throttle, blue. $80 knots checked. There's 100. V1, rotate. Positive rate, gear up. Our acceleration altitude is 1500. Once we get there, we are going to pull the power back from flex to climb. Let's turn our autopilot on. We're approaching it. It'll say lever climb. So we pull back to climb. The airplane will start pitching down and it will start accelerating. As it's approaching our speed right here, let's go ahead and put the flaps back up, which is what you see as a passenger. Let's do our climb checks real quick here. Disarm our spoilers. I'm gonna turn our auto brake off. Gears up, flaps up. Let's go ahead and turn the runway taxi lights off. And let's start turning 90 degrees so we can come back and land. Go ahead and control our speed as well manually, so we'll just leave it there at 250. Oh, it's cloudy today. Visibility is not the greatest today in Toronto. Once we're downwind, we'll start setting up for the landing. Again, we're never flying this low, obviously. I'm just doing that because we're just gonna come back and land. So let's go ahead and turn downwind. The reciprocal of runway 5 is gonna be 23, so we'll turn to 230. Go ahead and put it at 240 so I'm not too tight. There's Dulpa right here, so we're probably gonna go this way. We're gonna turn around, intercept Dulpa right here, and come in and land. So now that we're on the downwind, I'm gonna go ahead and start entering the destination. Oh, there it is. It says enter destination data. So if we go to the performance page, next phase, the approach phase. Our QNH is 2986. Temperature is 21 degrees Celsius. And our winds are 030 at 05. Our baro for our ILS runway 05 minimums is 764. We're gonna land with config 3 today instead of flaps full. And now we are set up. One thing I also like to do is, if we look here, I don't really know how far I am, so what I like to do, especially when we are coming into land, is put 2 rings around the runway that tell me how far I am. So if I go to flight plan, CYYZ, fix info, CYYZ, we're landing on runway 5. And then I'm going to put a 5-mile radius ring. Go to the next page, CYYZ, runway 05. And I'm going to put a 10-mile radius range here. Now if we look at our ND, now you see we have 2 circles right here. So I instantly know this is 5 miles from the runway and this is 10 miles from the runway, and that's extremely helpful in giving us a visual on when to slow down, how far we are, and to manage our approach and landing, because you don't want to slow down too early or too late. It gives you an idea of how far you are to put the landing gear down, so it really helps giving you a reference point. Let's go ahead and square off our downwind. Once we start turning, we're gonna slow down to 210. That's a good time to slow down, I think. What's the visibility today? Let me check. 350 6, 15 miles. That ain't no 15-mile visibility. Alright, here in a few, once we get to about here, we're just gonna go turn this way. So we'll give it a few more minutes. Alright, let's go ahead and turn base. And while we're doing that, we'll slow down to 210 knots. Airplane is slowing down nicely. Once we're done with our turn, once we are done with the turn, we're going to activate our approach phase and start getting the airplane ready to land. Let's square that turn off. We'll go ahead and activate our approach phase now. Activate approach phase. Confirm. We're gonna let the airplane manage the speed now since it knows we're landing. Let's turn on an intercept path. Usually here ATC would be vectoring us to intercept. This should be about right. Turn our landing system on, which will bring up our glide slope and localizer indicators. Go ahead and arm the approach. Look at that. No visibility. Kinda cool to show you how we find the runway when it's like this. So as you can see, our glide slope and localizer are in blue, which means they are armed. Soon this will switch when we intercept the localizer, and the airplane will, there we go, intercepting the localizer, and the airplane will turn itself in to line up with the runway. So we're gonna go ahead with flaps 1 right now, and when we are landing, that actually brings out the slats, not the flaps. Glide slope is alive. We are flaps 1 and we are below 200 knots, so we are in a good position to intercept the glide slope. Glide slope has turned green, that means we have captured it, and we're just gonna start going down. At around 2,000 feet above ground level, which is right here, we're gonna go ahead with flaps 2, and once flaps 2 are fully extended, we'll go ahead and put the gear down. There's 2,000 feet, flaps 2. We look at the indication here, it shows us our flaps 2 are extended. We're gonna go ahead and put the gears down. Gears down, let's do our landing checks. Auto brake, we're going to land with low today. Speed brake is armed. Landing gear down, 3 green, let's notify the crew. And we're gonna go ahead with our last notch of flaps, flaps 3. And we make sure it extends. Okay, we're landing, no blue. 1,000 feet, we are fully... Sorry, 1 second. There we go. We are fully established. We're going to disconnect the autopilot at about 500 feet and we'll fly it in. By the way, I clicked this because we are landing flaps 3, not flaps full today. So if you don't do that, the airplane thinks you don't have your flaps set up, so it'll start yelling at you. Alright, let's go ahead and take the autopilot off.
$300. 100 above. 200. Minimum.
Continue.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 5.
Reversers. Decel. There's 60 knots. We'll exit here. Welcome to Toronto, where the local time is I don't even know what time it is. This is what you would hear right now. I'm not going to taxi all the way to the gate. I'm just going to stop here and just pretend that we parked, and we'll shut down the airplane. Usually by the time we get to the gate we'd have our APU on, but we're not going to do that. So let's go ahead and put our spoilers up. Flaps are up. Alright, let's just stop here. Let's say pretend we're still taxiing. We're just going to go ahead, landing lights off. We usually turn our taxi lights on, but obviously we don't need it. We just parked. Go to put our parking brake on just for now. Alright, let's see. After landing, taxi lights are on, strobes off, landing lights off. Speed brakes are tracked, weather radar's off, transponder, we don't need that. Flaps are up. Auto brake is off. Let's turn these off. The landing system, the flight director. Okay, so usually we'd have our APU on like I said, but we don't, so I can go ahead and shut one engine off. So this is what it would sound like. Now before we shut the number 2 engine off and go completely dark, let's pretend they hooked up a GPU. Whoops. So now we have external power available. We'll turn that on. And now we can shut off engine number 1. Notice my beacon lights are still on because we have a running engine. So if we were at the gate right now, the ground crew would know not to approach and put these pylons, which they already did, but they're not supposed to. Otherwise this would get sucked in and bad things can happen. So we'll go ahead and shut off engine number 1. And once the N2 has pulled down before 20%, see right here, it's already at 10, then I can turn my beacon lights off. Oh, forgot the strobe lights. Now the ground crew sees that the lights are off and they can approach the airplane. So we'll just clean it up real quick here. Turn our fuel pumps off. We'll just do this here. Anti-ice off, exterior lights are off, transponder, we usually reset it, but whatever, I'm not doing it by the book right now. Wind shear systems off, flight deck door, we open it, but we already have it open because we have no passengers today. We have ground power on, and the APU, if it was on, we turn it off if we need to. Then we'd open the door. Well, they would, but in the game we do it here. Come on. There it is. And we'd kick you out and you can walk and have a good day. And this was a quick flight. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, it wasn't by the book. It wasn't too detailed, but it wasn't completely basic, which is what I wanted. We took this bird, flew it, came back in one piece, and that's the procedure. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a thing or two. You probably have more questions than answers, but I hope you enjoyed it. Take care. Bye-bye.